In this video, we tell you the very last words spoken by criminals just before their execution. Prisoners are allowed two things before execution: a last meal and a right to say some last words. People are said to be the most honest when they are faced with their death. Here are some of the strangest final statements from these convicted offenders, having been uttered moments before their deaths.
5.
Jonathan Marcus Green sexually assaulted and then killed Christina Neal, who was just a 12-year-old girl back in 2000. It was said that Christina Neal and her sister Victoria had an argument, and Christina then left from a friend's house and did not return home. The police were then called. Jonathan Green was a neighbour at the time. He was interviewed by the police and admitted seeing Christina, but denied any knowledge of her disappearance. Green later consented to a search of his backyard, but revoked the consent after the evidence response team used a probe to check beneath the soil. The initial probe indicated that the ground had recently been dug up and released an odour of decaying flesh. He was found to be guilty of murder and sexual assault, and buried her in his backyard. His very last words were, "My left arm is killing me. It hurts bad."
4.
Thomas Grasso was executed in Oklahoma on March the 20th in 1995 for committing two murders. He had strangled Hilda Johnson, who was an 87-year-old woman, using her Christmas tree lights on December the 24th in 1990 in her Tulsa home. He then stole $8 from Hilda's purse, $4 in loose change, and also stole her TV set, which he sold for $125. Then, just 6 months later, after moving to New York with his wife, Lana, he murdered Leslie Holtz, who was an 81-year-old man from Staten Island, on July the 4th, 1991, then stealing his social security check. New York detectives investigating the murder of Leslie Holtz arrested Grasso, and within 2 weeks, he had confessed to both murders. He first told investigators about the Staten Island killing, then confessed about the murder of Hilda Johnson. Thomas Grasso had requested that he wanted his last meal to be SpaghettiOs, but he didn't get them. He was given spaghetti and meatballs. His very last words spoken were, "I did not get my SpaghettiOs. I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this."
3.
James Lewis Jackson was sentenced to death by lethal injection on the 7th of February 2007 in Huntsville, Texas, after he was found guilty of killing his wife and two stepdaughters. James and Sharon Jackson married in 1995. Sharon had two teenage daughters named Sunny and Erica. James Jackson's heavy drug use and inability to hold a job produced problems in the marriage. On the 8th of April 1997, when Erica, 18, came home from high school, Jackson, then 37, asked how she felt about her mother's plans to divorce him. After Erica expressed mixed feelings about him, James Jackson strangled her with his hands. About 30 minutes later, Sunny, 19, came home from college. James Jackson asked her the same question. She was unaware that Jackson had just killed her sister. Sunny answered that she loved him and that she wanted to remain in his life. As she attempted to hug him, he strangled her. Jackson then put the two women in their beds. Later, Sharon, 39, called and asked for a ride home from work. Jackson picked her up and brought her back to the apartment. He told Sharon that the girls were sleeping. After Sharon rejected his attempts to reconcile their problems, he strangled her. His last words before execution were, "I'm ready to roll. Time to get this party started."
2.
Wesley Allen Dodd was a paedophile who was executed in Washington on January 5, 1993 for molesting and killing children. On September 4, 1989, Dodd lured two brothers, 11 and 10-year-old Cole and William Neer, to a secluded area where he forced them to undress, tied them to a tree and performed sex acts on them both. When he was done, he stabbed them repeatedly with a knife and fled the scene. The boys were soon discovered in the park. Cole was dead at the scene, while William died en route to the hospital. Dodd also abducted and murdered 4-year-old Lee Iserly of Portland in 1992. The state of Washington hanged Dodd for those murders. According to his handwritten sexual history, Dodd began preying on children at age 13. In all, he abused as many as 175 children of both sexes, mostly boys, over a 15-year period. Dodd said he moved from exposing himself to fondling victims to sexually assaulting them, and finally to sexually sadistic murder. His last words, "I was once asked by somebody, I don't remember who, if there's any way sex offenders could be stopped. I said no. I was wrong."
1.
Josie Villa, aged 39, was put to death by lethal injection for killing his ex-girlfriend, her young son and her mother. He said, "I would like to remind my children once again, I love them." Villa said, when asked if he had a statement before being put to death, "Everything is okay. I love you all and I love my children. I am at peace." Just as the injection began taking effect, he said, "It does kind of burn. Goodbye." He gasped several times, then started to breathe quietly. Within less than a minute, all movement had stopped.